Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Artcasters number 361. We have a returning guest. I think this is his fourth time on the show, actually, but we're gonna get to Gene in a minute. But we're gonna do what we always do. We're gonna go around the room and talk about anything we have to go as far as anything we want to promote or anything. I know when we get to Gene, he's got something big that he wants to promote, and I'm excited about that too. But as far as me, you can find me here on this channel. This is my YouTube channel where you can also find Making Comics 101. That is my series on how to make comics. It's the most comprehensive course that's free that you're going to find for making comics, and it's on my YouTube channel right here. Also, you can, on my website, you can find a number of things. You can find my digital products, like all my tools for making comics, Comic Maker Toolkit, Amazing Comic Book World Builder, Hero Design Studio, just tons of different tools and things for making comics. Also, my comics are on there. Young and the Dead, it's my kids versus zombie adventure story. Just think Goonies meets Night of the Living Dead. If that sounds interesting to you, then check it out. It's on my website. But yeah, that's pretty much what I have to promote. What about you, Corey?
Well, you can find my stuff at coreykerr.com, and StreamYard has a new feature, so there's a little subheader for you. Yeah, you can find it over here. coreykerr.com. I've got shirts, mugs, hoodies, laptop sleeves, flags, and all the different designs that I've been talking about. And if you just want to read about, listen to, or watch me make these things, then you can go to coreykerr.com/email. And that'll sign you up for my email newsletter when I release new designs, roughly weekly, but never more than that. So it's not going to overload you by any means.
You know, if people sign up for your newsletter, I'm pretty sure that they don't care that. I mean, they're probably, that's why they signed up. So
yeah,
it seems like they probably won't get. It's not like you're spamming them or anything. So.
Yeah. I guess I'm just I'm saying, if the barrier to entry is, well, I don't want you to email me every 6 minutes. That's not going to happen. Right. So
I will say I really enjoyed your recent newsletter about the Nigerian prince and the money deposit. That was my favorite. I mean,
he was deposed. He was deposed, and I think we did a lot of good in helping him out. People should have been receiving their checks. I think I oversent a little bit of the money though. So if you could get a little bit of that back to me, that would be great.
That's true. I'll just give you all my account details. And
just routing number and account number would be awesome. And I'll just take care of it from there.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. That's
good. Josh, where can we find your stuff?
If you're not, traveling Nigeria, no. You can find my stuff online, joshuakemble.com. You can also support indie comics by picking up my graphic novel that talks really openly about my journey dealing with depression, as well as learning how to navigate caregiving for somebody with panic disorder, called Two Stories. It kind of tells stories like that and other stories about like growing up and witnessing hypocrisy in a religious institution. Very like indie black and white comic. And then there's also a slice of life, all ages, or I keep almost saying all ages. It's not all ages. It's like middle grade and up, story about two roommates that are polar opposites, that one whose family member has died recently and they're kind of questioning identity and purpose. The other who's gone through a broken relationship and is kind of questioning her decisions and her life as well. Both are kind of pursuing their dreams in the arts. And while they're going through this like tumultuous early 20s kind of scenario, they find themselves drawn together and their dreams and reality start interweaving in a story that's kind of like if you took Eternal Sunshine for the spotless mind. And no, I didn't take a break. Never take a break from risk world domination. But anyhow, it's like if you took Eternal Sunshine for the Spotless Mind and Ghost World, put them in a blender if you like that flavor. Jacob's Apartment would be for you. Ask your local libraries to carry it and purchase it. So yeah, that's my wares. And I will say, speaking of the risk thing, I am live streaming making comics on YouTube under Joshua Kemble. And what I also do quite often as a refresher is also I will play live games of Risk Global Domination. And on Gary Hodges' stream, this happened. I'm just going to show you guys. Boom! You see that? It says master. So I became a master at Risk, and it's kind of like a ranking system similar to chess. So I'm very close to Grandmaster. I just have to move that yellow line a little bit over to the right. But yeah, so that's if you want to watch Risk games and live comics and stuff, make sure you're subscribed to my YouTube channel.
Yeah, you have to figure out where Corey put under his thing, buy something, why don't you? You need to put Grandmaster under yours. So figure that out.
That's true. I'm not
Or
Grandmaster yet, though.
Sorry,
I
Master.
can't. Yeah,
Master.
yeah. What is that called? Stolen Valor? I can't have
Yeah.
Stolen Valor with Risk.
Yeah. All right, Master. Okay, so Gene, you've got something super big to promote. That's why we reached out to you to have you on the show, because it's something that I've been waiting for you to launch for a while now. And a lot of people, it's something that started way back when, and you're bringing it back, and I'm super excited. So Gene, why don't you tell everyone what you just launched on Kickstarter, and maybe a little bit about it.
Well, thank you. First of all, great to see you guys again. And I'm glad we're all surviving the lovely storms that are going on here on the West Coast. I am the creator and publisher of Machine Comics. And I've been in the comic book field about 30-something years. And back about 26 years ago, I got to work on a book called Tribal Force. And it was, at the time, the very first all-Native American superhero team, created and published by Native Americans. And we got one issue out, and then that company kind of just fell apart. And everyone had to kind of go their separate ways. John Proudstar, who is a Pasco-Yaqui native, he lives in Tucson, on the reservation in Tucson. And he created it, and he was the originator. He's the writer of it. We kept in touch throughout the years, and he tried to get it done with 3 different other publishers, one of those being himself, and just wasn't really coming out right for him. And working with independent publishers, it's really difficult, because now I am one. And he called me about 1.5 years ago and said, "Hey, you're the only one that really got it. When we first came to this, I put it to everybody, and you got it, and you got it. And what we put out back then was really the only way it really was done right. Would you be interested in doing this again?" And my reason for founding Machine Comics was really kind of based on the nature and the spirit behind Tribal Force, which was indigenous cultures, ancient teachings, bringing heroes of different walks of life and different cultures and indigenous teachings and stuff to the forefront. So I said, yeah. At the time, I was going to put out my own book. I was going to do the second version of my own book, which is Downtown, and it's more of a graffiti zine type comic book. But I put that into second base, and have been working for the past year, just over 1.5 years, getting Tribal Force ready. And 2 weeks ago, we launched our Kickstarter. In fact, Today we are exactly 50% through our Kickstarter, and we have raised 75% of our goal. And so right now, Tribal Force, the rebirth is on Kickstarter. You just look up Tribal Force, and it'll pop right up for you. And we are, like I said, we're just, I think we're about 75%. And hopefully within the next 2 weeks, we finish up our campaign, and we'll be able to fund and bring it, the way it was meant to be brought to everybody. So when it came back to me, though, it was kind of like I was thinking about it for a couple weeks before that. And then all of a sudden, John just called me out of the blue. And it was like, oh, there's that dream project. That's the one I would have wanted to do. If I had a chance to do it right, that was the one. I've had a lot of good projects fall in my lap, and they either went really good or, sometimes the good ones just kind of get away. But that was one, you'd always wish you'd had back. And I wish I had it back, and it came back. And the cool thing was in 2014, Smithsonian Institute put it in part of their permanent pop culture collection for Native Americans. And being the first Native creative, all Native superhero team in the United States.
That's awesome.
Which was a really cool, acknowledgement, and I think a long overdue for Native creativity. So, So that's what I'm up to right now. I'm ears deep in kickstarting, and I'm actually still coloring the book right now, nearing towards the end. I'm publishing it. I'm also coloring it. I'm also lettering it, and John Proudstar, who is working the night shift somewhere, you may recognize him from Hulu's Reservation Dogs. He
Great
plays
show.
Dad
Yeah.
he plays Leon in Reservation Dogs, and they will be starting shooting season 3 pretty soon. So he was going to come to WonderCon, but I think they may be filming during that time. So hopefully, I'll get to see him soon. I get texts from him every now and then. But, what about this in the script? What about that? So it's exciting right now. We're kind of like, running down the street with their hair on fire, so to speak. And it's a long street.
So just so everyone knows, there's a link to the Kickstarter in the description of this video. So go definitely click on that link and check it out, because this is something super important. The fact that it's coming back is awesome. So I've already backed it, so I'm excited to get mine when it comes out, because I know it'll fund and everything, but we want it to fund big. So definitely check that out and just check it out. I was gonna say if you like 90s comics, because it started off as a 90s comic, but that's the question that I'm curious about. Is kind of the whole idea here of taking something that's 26-year-old property that started, and now you're bringing it back, but it's kind of a whole different world. So I'm kind of curious, what you wanted to keep from the original, what's changed, sometimes artistic styles and trends and things change a lot. So what do you do to keep it true to the original while also keeping it fresh and something that the audience of today is going to be into?
Well, when John first called me, we actually had that exact conversation. Okay, why, what, and what's the point? And when we started talking about it, he made it very clear. He understood we're in a different world than we were in '96. And I think that world could probably be best described as we're deeper. We're deeper. Things are more revealed now. Things are more, it's like you can't just say, that's a bad guy. That bad guy has depth now, and it's not necessarily a bad guy. He just has a point. That person just has a point of view on something, and so all of a sudden we're talking about deeper, deeper concepts and deeper emotions, or deeper reasons for why various entities are doing what they're doing. And so in the original book, you had a lot of like, okay, I understand that's the superficial, I want to say superficial, but okay, we can kind of take a guess as to what the team at that point was fighting for, fighting with, and whatnot. You kind of had a sense of it, because it was kind of unspoken. We're in a day, we're in a time right now where all of that unspoken has not only been spoken out loud, but then also really defined.
Yeah.
When it comes to Native American rights and how they're treated, as an entire culture, the Native American genocide has been very, at the forefront of conversation, whether people believe it or not. So there's a lot of things that all of a sudden this particular title and John really brought to the forefront. One of those would be, child abuse and human trafficking and things like that back then was kind of almost, it was like, it was almost like you couldn't talk about it, but it was okay that it existed. Now it's not only being talked about, but the question is, what are we doing about it? And that's where, it's similar story, what's going on, but now we're actually figuring out where these heroes came from, why they're doing it, and why now. What is the impetus? What's that history that has driven them? And it starts with, Thunder Eagle, the primary, god of the group, bringing all these heroes, what would soon be heroes, together to help him in his efforts to address and counteract a lot of the things that are going on right now. Whereas I think before in '96, you couldn't really say that. You could show it, but you couldn't really say it. So I really love the depth and everything. And Chris Williams is a new penciler on it, and Jake Eisenberg is the inker on it. And Chris Williams has just brought a whole nother depth of art, of emotion, of rendering out, what these heroes look like, think like, feel like. The environment itself is just it's a whole nother ball game. So we're excited. We're real excited about it.
So I mean, how many, like, looking at, like, I guess the character roll call, I'm curious, like, I understand you've introduced at least one new character, and I don't know if you've I mean, when you look at superhero costumes, just in particular, just with the way things are, like in the Marvel movies, and now a lot of that's creeping in, like now Superman can't have the red briefs and stuff like that, and you've got to show all the stitching and stuff in the costumes and different things like that. So did you guys kind of revamp or kind of reinterpret any of the, like, costumes, or like, were there any characters that, like, well, we don't know if this character works this way anymore, we're going to change that? Or how much of, like, the characters stayed to the originals? What's new there?
Well, I remember having that conversation back in '96 with John about, the costume characters, and do we want to have them all in spandex and all this other stuff. And at that time, he had the idea of, well, let's see if we can, kind of meld that superhero type thing with the native traditional costumes, but also bringing it up to contemporary, like Nita, one of the Navajo, Yomi Navajo girl, Yomi Lakota, actually, that's one of our main characters. She wears a Miami Dolphins t-shirt, jersey as part of her gig, and I think it's cool. So there's a lot of choice, I think, among the characters themselves. Thunder Eagle's a god, so he just kind of has what he has on. And when it came to, like, updating or whatnot, I think Chris Williams did an amazing job of kind of staying traditional to what John had originally had in mind. And John actually, back then, I think we had maybe 3 issues written. John has 8 issues ready to go, awesome. Written, scripted, and everything. And we're, this is why, this, for people who don't understand Kickstarting and the independent production of it, the first one's a big one because it actually can help you fund the rest. You're right. Not going issue by issue. If we can get as much funded on the front end, then the next Kickstarters become bigger and more fun and more better and everything, because you can actually have other, fun people. Sometimes, famous artists, will just throw something in at you, and that's a 1 in a million shot. But most of the time, when you have a cover or something like that, or something special done by a quote unquote famous person, it costs you a little, and for us to have that and those types of resources, we were, we're looking for those types of funds. And right now we're not there, but we know we can get there. We know we can, and we have the relationships with some great people out there, and we're hoping they can come through for us on various future stuff, or even this one. Cause like I said, we still have 2 weeks to go. But getting back to the uniforms and everything, I think Chris did a great job of interpreting them and bringing them up to date, more contemporary. And John actually has, I didn't know this until I started reading it. I'm like, well, wait a minute. We replaced one of the main characters, which was one of my favorite characters, out of the initial starting lineup. And then it revealed to me that he's not gone. This is just the starting lineup for this issue. And there's going to be more gods and more, ancient legends and everything making appearances. So, it's not so much like an X-Men where you have people kind of coming in and out, but you have your main core, because this main core actually goes through several different, trials and tribulations as they go through it. And even, like Adi had a very minor role. Adi is the Inuit, Alaskan Native American. He actually is a Thunder Eagle, or warbird, but it's actually a person, which I didn't realize back in '96. Now it's actually a person that turns himself into Thunder Eagle. So it's very, very cool. Some of the legends and everything that have been made really clear, that you get a lot of more backgrounds. You understand, okay, this makes, now we're talking about some real background into history, real background into Native beliefs, culture, and sacred beings. So it's very cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the art looks great, and you're coloring the whole book, right?
Yeah. I'm coloring. I've colored 2 of the covers. Gat is another person I'll probably be doing covers for us, who I think his colors are just amazing. He does a lot of, if you've seen any of Chris Williams' work, he does a lot of Chris Williams' work, and those 2, when they team up, they're just really, really good. And I hope to bring him on as a series, have him kind of take over more and more as the series goes along. Like I said, Chris Williams is just doing a crazy good job at it. Just like I get stuff and I'm like, wow, when does this happen?
Yeah. Well, having worked with you as a colorist, I know. It's going to take some excellent colors to kind of fill your shoes. But it's one of the things you kind of wanted to talk about, because I imagine you might need a little reinforcements, because you wanted to talk also about just being a kind of that jack of all trades, because you're the publisher, you're the colorist, you're kind of running the campaign from what I can see, and promoting it and doing all that stuff, which, I guess it's not unlike just being an independent artist, but as a publisher, I mean, you've got a lot of things that you're responsible for. So, how do you manage all that? or what are some of the challenges?
It's interesting. When I first produced my own book, it wasn't that too far of a stretch for me, because I've been sitting on this particular book for many, many years, actually. Wrote it, pitched it on several movies, pitched it for animation and everything. And then finally, I said, you know what, I'm getting old, and, it needs to be out there. And it was my own thing. And I didn't really have an attachment as to where it went. I just wanted to see it done. And so kind of muscled through it. Now working with, an entire band of artists, as well as, a creator and writer who is incredibly, proficient and really good at telling a good story. You have a lot more moving pieces, and that's just the publishing end of it, on top of, okay, when am I going to get the pages so I can color? And then, oh yeah, I got to, also lay out the book, and then also letter the book, and then make sure that, the table of contents and all the ads and everything's all lined up in that way. So there's that part. And then, oh, by the way, I got to learn how to do a Kickstarter. I think that's what is always fascinating, especially nowadays. You see independent publishers from back in the 90s today throwing, 6-figure Kickstarters. And It's amazing to me. I'm floored. And then, and then you go, you show up at a con and you start talking to them, and then you start talking to the people that are working with them, and it turns out there's like 18 people working with them. It's because they've been doing it since then. They've been, and they've weathered the storm, and kudos to them. Like if I wouldn't have made that decision to go into fashion and entertainment and action sports and all that stuff, I would have loved to kept going, but I had to keep the lights on, and so as you have that independent spirit where you have to kind of, make those hard choices. And now I'm at a point where it's like, okay, I got to make more hard choices, because I'm juggling an entire staff that kind of is not at, I might be paying their check, I might not be paying their check, but at the end of the day, it's on me as the publisher. And so you got to be willing to be responsible and take it, responsible for everything. And at the same time, be patient, because what goes on with those people is their lives.
Yeah.
And we could talk about, I could tell you a lot of stuff that has happened just from the time I said yes to this project to where we are now. It is a fascinating story.
Oh yeah. Well, we've got time.
So from the time I said yes, we had on the team of 4, I would say myself, John, Jake, and Chris, we had a new baby. we had one of our grandsons is still going through cancer. My sister started going through cancer about the same week that I got this project as well, and then she passed away this past late December.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and she was, you know, the light of everybody's world, and it was a really, really hard time. We had one of our artists pass away, one of the cover artists that was working on a cover, so we had to eliminate that cover because all the art, all of his art was kept for other purposes.
Yeah.
So that was less than a month before we launched. We had just things like that was like, you know, and by the way, you know, we were in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah.
That too, you know. So all of that went on leading up to this Kickstarter and the relaunch of this. And I just kept thinking to myself, we're going to get this done. You know, there's so much more important about what this book is and what it stands for and what's going on in the world, that people need to see this and know that, you know, the spirit behind it, the story behind it, the essence behind it, the everything that's behind it is not going to be, you know, set back or put back down just because all the other stuff going on, not only in our lives, but then in the world at large.
Yeah,
so it's been a journey. Not the, you know, all that stuff just took place in the last year and a half, I guess.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, we just kept going.
Yeah, well,
we're still going.
Yeah, and it's live now, and so I wanted to circle back. Because you had talked a little bit about that, some of the people that have kind of been doing, you know, comics since the 90s and kind of what they're doing now with Kickstarter. And I was thinking, you know, the 90s was that, I mean, there was this huge boom, but then there was a crash, and it's kind of like, you know, how do you kind of stick in there? So it's like, obviously you went into, you know, fashion design and you know, and entertainment and all that. Because obviously there's probably a lot more, you could be a lot more successful in that when, you know, when comics were kind of at their low point. But, you know, I guess some of the people that kind of stuck in it, and I don't know how many people were there all along, or they just kind of saw, oh, things are kind of changing now. We've got Kickstarter and there's opportunities there. But I don't think it's too late to kind of circle back and jump back in. You know, I mean, there's just so many opportunities, especially, you know, well, you know, with crowdfunding and everything. And, you know, sometimes it takes a little while to get things going, build up that momentum. Once you crowdfund one thing, then you've got a little bit of an audience there and you can build off of that. But I just think, you know, I'm somewhat surprised that it's not already funded, just because of how kind of important the work is and the, you know, the history of it and everything. So, but, you know, I'm confident it's going to be funded and everything. But, you know, why isn't Kickstarter pushing this? Why isn't it a project we love? You know, but I wonder that too with certain things, you know, that I do. It's just like, you know, you never know. It's funny.
Yeah, you know, I think it's been a great lesson in humility for what I love, you know, for things that I, you know, fall in love with. You know, I'm a fine artist as well. You know, I have my own gallery, and I've shown across the country and everything. And and then there's been other little projects, comic book wise, here and there that I've gotten to work on just out of the blue. People will call me up, can you do a cover? Can you do a book and whatnot? And I, you know, when I'm available, I absolutely. And I think it's a great reminder that I get more charged by that one person who loves it than the you know, the 10 people that say, yeah, we like it, but then don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
You know, and because that one person that not only says they love it, but they've already taken action on it. They've already, you know, whether it's just a friend sometimes, or whether it's, you know, I remember meeting a kid. I did the San Diego Comic-Con special edition, you know, and it was, you know, right as we're coming out of COVID and everything. And this this kid walked up to the booth, and he's just sitting there looking at my book, and didn't say anything. He just was kind of frozen with it, and then he walked away. And about 20 minutes later, his mom comes up, and she just looks at me and she goes, "He hasn't said anything all day, but he said this is what he wants."
Oh,
and that just floored me, because any other time I probably would have just kind of dismissed it as just, okay, he's just going to go away.
Yeah.
But he hadn't said anything, and he wouldn't say anything to me, or the way he would talk, he would actually just whisper in his mom's ear.
Yeah. I've seen that before.
Right. So
the shy kid,
totally, and so then
he's probably kind of impressed by the work, so
I loaded him up, and I just kind of give him, the house for free, and just kind of gave him, and then he found the website, he ordered a shirt later that night and all that stuff.
That's awesome.
So then they came back the next day, and he had drawn my characters, or drawn something, and because he was like, all of a sudden he wanted to be a part of that. And I remember the mom thinking, coming up and saying, he's just a fanatic, like he's all bought, he's 100 bought in. And it just moved me from okay, I'll take that any day.
Yeah.
The if you're making a difference with one. And because people always ask, what's your artist statement? What is all that stuff? And I've always said it, but having an experience of it, it's really my fine artist statement has actually trickled over into my comic book art, was just to make a difference with one person.
Nice.
Who that is, I have no idea who would ever be. But if I can make a difference with one person, mission accomplished, life well lived. And I'm okay with that, Would I love it to be more? Would I love it to be, 7-8 figures more? Heck yeah. But if I get one and have made a difference with that one person, I'm good. Mm-hmm. I'm good. Those years of toiling, those years of, trying to figure out how to communicate what's inside and having it come out, and then all of a sudden somebody sees you and gets it and understands it. That's gold. And when you have an experience like that, you're not gonna. It's really hard to. Not enjoy that, not only enjoy it, but savor those moments as like, that's what life's all about right there.
Yeah. And it's especially, cool about that is that, this is San Diego. There's so much stuff out there for somebody, pick one thing out of everything there, and that's the thing that they gravitate to. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's hard because I live in Orange County, and San Diego. I grew up going to San Diego, and then trying to show and I'll be there again this year. We're going to WonderCon at the end of this month. By then the book will be out. We're trying to get early copies so that because the Kickstarter will have ended. So I'm working my butt off to get early copies printed, just like maybe 100 copies for WonderCon. Yeah. Cross your fingers, everybody, that we can pull that off. Yeah. But it's also the most saturated market in America. Everyone who's in Hollywood has a story, has a superhero, has a has a graphic novel and whatnot, and people coming to me, it's like, well, you were just mentioning or alluding to it. Is it worth it to go into comics, or is it worth it to do you want to dust off that dream that you have of that hero or that story? I say yeah, because those are the ones, the people that are willing to have the guts and courage to go put their heart on their sleeve and put out their story and communicate something that might make a difference with one person. That's worth it. Mm-hmm. That's worth all the whatever you're going to go through. That's, if you're going to leave something, leave that as your legacy, that you made a difference with one person.
Yeah, and I'm taking it to a convention. Just the pitch in itself, first all native superhero team and creative team. That's something that, that's why I think it's just a matter of, the right people haven't heard that message yet, or just don't know about it. Because I know, sometimes it's just whatever, if the message falls through the cracks. But if people, are exposed to it. That's just definitely something that, for one, whatever it's news outlets or whatever. Because I've seen this happen in similar situations. Like there's what was it? Is it? Are you familiar with Black Sands Entertainment?
Yeah.
So it's all it's African superheroes pre-slavery, and it's all the owner of that company, it's like $1 million business right now. So, he was on Shark Tank, and he got, I think it was, I forget what Damon, I forgot his name, that started Fubu. I forgot his last name, but anyway, he went in with them and everything like that. But I mean, something like that. I mean, this isn't dissimilar to that. So it's just, finding the right people and everything. But yeah, I mean, there's just so much potential and everything. So
I think so. I mean, I think first of all, I think there's room. There's over 8 billion of us now here on the planet. So I think there's enough room for heroes of every color, heroes of all walks of life.
Yeah.
And all walks of life and people of every color should have a hero. Why not?
Absolutely.
The hero doesn't always need to be, of one certain kind. And I would caution people to, go and find your hero. Go and find, that story or something that resonates with you.
Mm-hmm.
That for me, growing up, my first comic was my brother's comic. It was a Howard the Duck comic. But my first hero was actually like Calvin and Hobbes.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
I wanted to have that type of view on the world.
Yeah. So you're like running around pretending to be Spaceman Spiff at that point.
Totally. It's funny because I'm the youngest of 5, and I couldn't get in any trouble. I could try hard. I mean, I did get in a little bit of trouble, but my brothers and sisters were just running circles around me.
Yeah.
If I have burning down the schoolhouse, I wasn't going to get in trouble. They were doing fine. They had everyone's attention. So I was Sunday paper or morning, the black and white funnies that came every single day in the newspaper. I wanted to be Calvin. I wanted to be Milo Bloom,
Yep.
and just, be talking with Opus and have a cat and then be, I wanted to be that guy. And then Silver Surfer came out, and when I got a hold of the Eternals, it was like, oh, this is my tribe. This is where I belong.
Yeah.
And it made sense. So, but when you find somebody, when you start finding your tribe in the heroes, in the make believe, in the, in the fantastic, in the legends, in the ancient, you'll start realizing that what you're attracted to or what you're following is kind of what your life is, really kind of leading you to. It's not going to lead you to something. It's not going to resonate with you, something that just doesn't make sense for your life at a deeper level. So that's why I always encourage people, go find a hero. Go find heroes that resonate for you, not because somebody else likes them or the rest of the world, or it's a blockbuster movie and you're seeing if you can get over $1 trillion at the box office. Go find that one thing that just is your resonance. What speaks to you? Who's speaking your language? And for me, Hobbes was speaking my language way more than anybody else.
Oh yeah, I mean, it just tapped into, it's just all about imagination and everything. And as anyone creative, I mean, how could you not tap into that? And so yeah, I'm definitely a huge Calvin and Hobbes fan. So
I like that suggestion too, because I think that really reiterates the beauty of indie comics and why people should support them is the fact that there's a lot more diversity of character and thought and story. And that's not just physical diversity, literally just, a lot of the mainstream publishers are going to be doing kind of carbon copy characters, and they should, because they have their owners have a fiscal responsibility to just keep, if they can get that Superman money by kind of rebranding Superman and having it be the same Superman, why wouldn't they? And they probably should for their company, for their employees, for everything. Indies are great because you're not going to get as much carbon copy stuff. You're going to get more creative visions, more independent visions. And so I think it really is on us as fans of comics, even if you're a fan of superhero comics and mainstream stuff, to really pay attention to what's going on with independently published books, because you might be surprised how much it's out of the box from like what you might expect, and how much the storytelling might go to deeper levels than you would expect. And I think supporting projects like this are really important, because again, like if we don't support this kind of thing, then we just get carbon copy stuff, you know?
Yeah. It's funny because, you know, I just saw an article, I think it was this morning, DC coming up, not DC, but Marvel, you know, Marvel, I think the headline was Marvel producing their own bad Superman. And then there was one yesterday that was Superman something, something, something. And then it was talking about The Boys, the show The Boys, you know, and comparing, you know, what's his name, to Superman, the main antagonist there. And first of all, The Boys is a great show.
It is a great show.
All those guys,
Yeah.
I think they killed it with that show. But I found it odd because everything was using the Superman moniker as a touchstone, because the thought was everyone knows this. Everyone should know this, or everyone can relate to Superman because one, it's been around for, you know, 60, 70 years.
Yeah.
But the other thing is I kind of felt it was a little sad in that there was no other that people can go, you can use this as a touchstone, or is this as a comparative?
Yes.
Or is this as the conversation, you know? And that to me is almost a little scary, you know, to where it's like, okay, I'm going to say Batman, everyone knows who I'm talking about. I'm going to say Superman, everyone knows what I'm talking about. I'm okay if everyone knows what you're talking about, because we're all comic book fans. However, you know, when I say Thunder Eagle, all of a sudden, who, what, and this, you know, that type of character could be, you know, as rich as a Superman, as, you know, amazing as Conan, you know.
Yep.
And so there's things I think that, especially this, you know, the generation that has come up now that are at the cons now, they're I think this is why anime and manga really took off, because there's zero of the American pop culture there.
Yeah.
There is a lot of beautiful art, a lot of beautiful characters, a lot of beautiful storytelling, you know,
and of all kinds of genres and types. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's where I think, you know, I don't want to say we got lazy coming out of the 90s, but I also think we got shell shocked. You know, it's like, oh, you know, everyone went out and created their own thing, and then everyone got blown up at the same time.
Yeah.
And everything crashed and burned and everything. And then you had either girlfriend, mom, or dad, or, you know, whoever that was saying, the naysayers that said, see, told you it would fail. See, told you it's not worth it. See, told you, you know, and it's like, yeah, you had to believe them. And now here we are 25 years later with that still hero waiting to get out, waiting to breathe, waiting to be seen, or waiting to be discovered.
So true.
And this is why, you know, this is exactly why I created, you know, Machine Comics, because not only is it, you know, for me as a minority and somebody who loves creating and whatnot, but I just got tired of listening to that chatter of other creators or people, you know, saying, where's the people where's the heroes that are my skin color? Where are the heroes from my history? Where are the heroes that are telling my stories? And it's like, well, some of them you've already seen it. You just don't know that it was from your culture, because it was appropriated from your culture. And the other ones is those creators either got shot down in the 90s, you know, in the late 90s, or they're trying to, you know, recover and figure it out. Or the people, you know, the young kids that are really good storytellers and really good artists and everything nowadays don't know, because they were never told those stories.
Totally.
You know, they were uneducated out of it. And that's a problem. I think that's also a big problem with, you know, we have an appreciation of the heroes from World War II because of Superman and Captain America.
Right.
You know, these are great heroes. These are Americans, and I love both of them, you know, absolutely. But there's also a lot of other stories and a lot of other cultures with just as rich, if not more, longevity in the character, in the story, in the, you know, in the lessons and whatnot that can be told, can be just as rich, if not, you know, more impactful, because you have I mean, California alone, you have 64% minorities. So, now you have an entire culture that, oh man, that hero is the same skin color as me, or speaks the same language, or, understands my culture.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm trying to tell, great grandma something and she just doesn't get it.
and it's like, it also just makes for a richer, like backstory and a richer kind of history that you're able to express on, like, history that, a lot of the time has maybe been told, but it's been under the radar. And it's like being able to kind of highlight those things and derive from those things is, like, I think really important, and not only important, like, just culturally, and for people who could, like, relate with it and feel like their stories aren't being told, and finally they get a hero, right? But not just that, outside of that, it also just makes for a richer landscape with storytelling, because again, do we want to pull from the same, like, homogenous pool and have the same story over and over again, or do we want to kind of bring it broader and kind of, like, hear other stories and other histories and stuff? And I think that's really exciting, and needs to be happening. I know, like, we've had, like, Javier Hernandez on here too, who started the Latina Comics Festival.
Yep.
And when he started doing El Muerto, there was, like, nobody talking about, like, Aztec gods and, like, pulling from that rich history. And he's been at it for a while, but he's at the point now where he's, like, in history books, for comics, for kind of, helping kind of place that down. And it's like that kind of movement, like, again, that doesn't, you don't have Genes, you don't have Javier's, you don't have people making this kind of great work unless it gets supported. So, I think we need to go out there and support it.
Yeah, my son is a Pacific Islander, and so in Idaho there's a lot of white people, and it's really interesting. He's 4 years old, and we talk about it, and we celebrate the fact that there's a great book that Sesame Street put out called "We're Different, We're the Same," and it goes through, and it's like, our noses are different. It's got a bunch of different noses, and then it's like, our noses are the same, they do the same things. Our skin is different, our skin is the same. But it's interesting to me to watch kind of him experience the world, because he's cool with people of all backgrounds and races and whatever, but also he gets excited when he's like, hey, look, Dad, like, that guy's got dark skin like me. And I'm like, yeah, isn't that awesome? And so, and it's good for, like, not just him, but for everybody else to, all the white people and all the black people and all the brown people and everybody out there to see, like, a mixture of everybody, because it's more representative of what the world is like, rather than everything that kind of came out of the 50s, which is like, this is what America is like. And it's like, well, even back then it wasn't like that, like, that's just what the media portrayed. But I agree, and I agree with what Josh is saying, because I worry about our culture as a whole. We've stagnated in our current zeitgeist, where we're not challenging ourselves, and we're not challenging the mainstream media in any particular way. Like, it's almost like people don't want different stories. Like, this has happened, like, cyclically throughout history. Like, back in ancient Greece, they kind of had a similar problem that we have today, where they developed in like I guess it would be 6th century BCE. They developed a lot of the tragedies and a lot of the plays that we know now, where they were developing a lot of the characters of the Greek pantheon. And then by the time the 5th century came along, poets would get in trouble if they deviated too much from that. And there was one guy who he wanted to tell a story about how women risking their life in childbirth was actually more life-threatening than men risking their life in war, which were kind of the two main life-threatening things at the time. And it upset people so much because, Hercules and these guys were doing things that were slightly different than the same stories being told over and over again, that he was, like, fined. And so, like, throughout history, we've had these kind of cycles where we're cool with new things, and the public supports it and embraces it, and then it goes into this like level of stagnation. And I feel like, I'm hoping at least, that we've been in this level of stagnation now for like several decades. I'm hoping that we can kind of like shake out of that and like embrace new things and new characters and things that aren't, like I think everybody watching would say, yeah, I love the X-Men and I love the DC universe and the Marvel universe. It's great, right? It's great. But it's also really boring because like those stories have been told, and I would love to see new stories, but the only way that happens is when new stories start getting told. If everybody jumps on board and is like, let's back this and let's feed it and support it with our patronage so that it has the ability to grow and continue. The only reason that Superman and Captain America and Batman and those guys are around is because when they came out, people bought those books. And then people kept buying the books as they developed and as they did those things and whatever. And so when there are new things, I think it's super important for a number of different reasons to like get out there and support the new stuff. And that's one of the reasons why I really like indie comics, is because they like outside of the mainstream is where you're going to get the most interesting new stories that are going to shake things up or whatever. Because I mean, we can make Captain America black and we can make, Thor a girl and whatever, but it's like, it's still not the same as like, here's a new set of characters that like are representative of a different aspect of society that isn't as represented as it should be. And you can go in and kind of like run with that. And I think a lot of people pay lip service to that, but they don't put their wallet on the table as much as they should.
Yeah, I think, well, and I've talked about this before, how a lot of times when they do sort of, they do introduce like a Black Captain America or whatever, or Iron Man or Iron Woman or whatever. I think it's more, it's harder to, it's because like what you're saying, people want to stick to this certain thing. So it's harder to introduce an all new character, but it seems like the MO is that we put them in the shoes of a character somebody already knows, and then that character ends up coming back, but then they've kind of got two characters. So now you've got an Iron Heart and an Iron Man, so in some ways those characters are still derivative. So it might be more interesting to have something that's wholly original, like Black Panther is Black Panther. He's not derivative of some other character, but it kind of seems like that's the way they find that they can get the most traction by introducing new characters.
And I think Marvel and DC are stuck, because I'm cool with that. I like Falcon as Captain America. I like Ryrie as Ironheart. I like a lot of those characters. That's cool. When Aurora Monroe became Black Panther for a stint, that was rad. Like I like mixing that up just because it's not like, oh, okay, so Captain America's a Boy Scout and he's doing Boy Scout things again. Great. It's like I've seen those stories for, 50 years. So I'm cool with that, but I don't know what else they can do, and like they can introduce new characters too, but they still have to live in the world with everybody else. And they're owned by giant corporate conglomerates that don't care about anything but the bottom line. And they're just going to milk those properties for all they're worth. And so that's why, like you go to the indies and you're like, okay, now here's people telling stories that are interesting, because it's like, Gene, you don't have like the CEO of Disney or the CFO like coming after you and saying like, this better make $40 million the opening weekend or whatever. Like, no, it's like you're telling stories that just are interesting, that are cool, because you want to tell them, and there's not like an accountant breathing down your neck, making sure that, you're making these decisions according to some poll or something, it's just
your accountant is your checkbook.
Right. Yeah.
It's like your bank account. When you look at your bank statement, it's like, that's your accountant. That's, that's your boss. That's it's like, as an independent, that's really what it comes down to. It's like, okay, how much can I afford to put into this? Not just money, but just time and, time and effort and, all that focus is incredibly valuable, and so there's you kind of have to start, I don't want to say, you have to start believing in it more than you would more than you did when you first started it. And you have to
Yeah.
kind of find a way to reinvent that belief every single day, because you'll hit days when you go, nobody's going to want this. Nobody's going to, and truth is nobody might, nobody right now, nobody does anyway. Nobody's asking for it, but then nobody was asking for the heroes that we have today either.
Yeah.
Right.
It was just them, these guys, some wacky guys coming up with some crazy stuff, and all of a sudden Spider guy with, Spider-Man. That's cool. Yeah. Right. So.
Or even Calvin and Hobbes was so out of left field for a Sunday comic. Like there was no Sunday comic that was that specific. It was usually like trope characters that are kind of recycling the same thing. Calvin and Hobbes was a much more kind of like almost biographical feeling. It just had a different feel. The look was totally different. The layouts
definitely
were
a
fresher.
world than you would find in most syndicated
and the
comics.
Playfulness of like the imaginative sequences. It's like you just didn't see a lot of that in a lot of Sunday comics and stuff. And somebody had to do it first. And Gene, I like what you're saying too, because I think that has a lot to do with like actualizing these things. Because when we're creators, it's so easy to not like visualize this thing working, especially when you're years into it, and your pocketbooks in it too. And it's like, it's so hard. It's very easy to kind of have moments where you just completely lose faith in the process and in yourself and all of that. But like actualizing what it could be, like I love, Gene, when you were talking about like, why don't we have an indigenous character that's as big as Superman? That's like, why don't we? That's insane.
Yeah.
We should. And this could be that. And I think it should be that. So it's kind of, that's a fun thought. And I think that's also like, that should be a driving, reason for doing it and for supporting it, is just like, actualizing things that should be in the world and just trusting that. Like, you're like, okay, this should be there. There's that one kid at the convention. That kid needs a hero, and it's like there's other kids like that out there that need that hero, and adults too, but
well, and then you also have pocket communities, like I said, California is 64%, and this is, I'm going off data right now. I'm just thinking, wow, that was like 7 years ago, but 64% Native minorities. So that's 64% of the population in California, which is the sixth largest economy in the world, that are looking for heroes that are of their skin color.
Yeah,
maybe. I still go to Marvel movies. I'll pay and I'll get my popcorn, and I'll go because I love those characters, and they make great movies, and they're fun, and it's all cool, and it's inspiring. Because when I leave those movies, I go home and I start drawing, or I start, pull out some of my old books, and was that really, was that accurate? And I'll do that whole thing. I'm a total geek about that.
Yeah,
and I know when I grew, as I was growing up, and looking around and getting really jazzed about, what Image came out with, and what Todd did with Spawn, and with, and Jim Lee did with Wildstorm, and, and seeing these other characters that just jazz, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. That's not only okay, but it's doable. Yeah. Because all of a sudden I had characters coming out of my brains when that lit me up. And so then I had to go do that. I had, because it was just of me. It wasn't like it was almost like not a choice. That just came out because I was a creative person. I always wanted to draw comics and draw comic strips and whatnot. So I have that as part of like my breathing. It wasn't a hobby. It was just part of my lifestyle. And so in that, I just went and did that, and I created a bunch of stuff. And then, you get into the reality and the chatter and the ego part of nobody's going to buy it. Nobody's, you start listening to the real, what people either are saying to you in the world, what people want you to believe because it's what they believe, or just because the economics, you're charged to actually live, to breathe here in the US, that you're paying. Yeah. So you have to figure out a way to keep paying that. Otherwise, you either can't live here, or, you'll be on the streets. So I had to figure out that way, which is why back then I said, okay, I can't sustain my group of fellow artists who all turned out to be amazing artists, including my brother. And these guys all went on to have really great creative careers. And myself, I was really thankful for, all the avenues that got open to me. But I always kept an anchor back in what I loved. I would come home and just doodle. I would come home and just, write something down and whatnot. And it was just pure imagination that I just let get the best of me, and shame on me for that. But I love to do it. And because it's something, it's of me. It's not it's not a good hobby. It is just part of who you are.
I love
that.
Yeah, because I don't think I've met a cartoonist who doesn't like anyone I've met in comics generally. We're not doing this because we're like, man, this is my get rich quick scheme. There might be some weird Hollywood types that are trying to do that, and they don't tend to stick around very long in comics, because they're like, oh, graphic novels are the hip thing. I'll make a new screenplay book, and it's like they don't last. But the people who are like sticking in comics, like we're all like, it's like not even a choice. Like you just have to, like, because it's like it's a way to it's like our voice.
Yeah. It's to me it's the most viable way of literally spelling out what you want to say. Sometimes, I love it. And that's the beauty of comics and that type of medium. I have, like I said, I'm also a fine artist. I have paintings where people will come into my gallery and they'll just sit there and they'll just talk my ear off about what that painting is saying. And I had no clue that that's what that was painting was saying. But if that's what it's saying to you, awesome. Totally. I'm with you, man. I'm totally with you. And let me pull up a chair. You can break out some wine. Let's do this, because I want to hear what that painting is saying to you, and in comics, it's a little different because you can go, check this out. This is where, Logan's doing today, and this is where, we had to make a choice about when he was, as part of the Secret Seven and all this stuff. And so it's a little bit more direct. It's a little, and that's what I really love about it is you can have these beautiful stories, this beautiful art, but more so this beautiful culture that has been created in these worlds. Communicate these amazing things, these amazing lessons of life, these ancient rituals, these ancient, stories of heroes, of failures, of perseverance, of figuring out who they get to be, who they get to reinvent themselves to be. And sometimes it's, I think Superman, was like, well, what else can we do with Batman? It's like we've already had so many iterations of him. It's like, well, you could take I think he died once. I think Superman's died maybe twice, but they keep coming back and they'll keep reusing them and everything. And okay. But what if it was a different hero? And what if that life of that 70-year Superman run is just beginning? What if that, it's like when Spawn broke the record, was it 2 years ago or last year, I think it was, and I still have Spawn 1 through 100.
Me too.
Everyone goes through 100, right?
I think I got 1 through 50 maybe.
But when it started, I remember looking and flipping through that book. You always buy the one that you don't touch and you buy the extra one. And I tore the one I did touch. I just tore that thing apart, literally until the staples fell out of it, because it was introducing me to a different world. Yeah. And I thought, that is awesome. That is not only awesome, but it was like, there's a different world besides Gotham. There's a different world besides Metropolis. There's no Daily Bugle in this thing? Or, there's no daily, all the worlds that we thought were hero worlds were just shattered. And then I think the floodgates got open for so many different peoples, so many different dimensions too. It's like, oh, let's talk about Lady Death, and let's talk about, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and let's talk about, Hellboy and all, and then oh my God, and Neil Gaiman just reinvents the wheel, and then here we are. And so when you have something like that, fanning that storyteller, that comic artist and everything, it's like, of course I'm going to make it my life. I'm not going to make it my hobby.
Yeah, I love it.
And then you have, like I said, I had this dream project, fall in my lap twice, and you don't say no twice. I said yes the first time, but then it comes around 25 years later. You're just like, oh man, we can do this. I'm at a point where it's like I can give this one great big more run, and we already have we have 2 books ready to go. We have 8 books written. Back then we had 2.5 and half a cover drawn. And we still got the book out, but we don't have, and this is where it kills me, because if we just had half of the distribution that we had back then, I mean, it's like, I understand the independent distribution part, and I don't understand it. I think I'm too much of an artist to understand the business side, or to want to understand the business side or the marketing side and everything. And that works against me, I know, but I'm trudging through all of this stuff because it's all important. I think this book especially matters on so many different levels for not only native, indigenous, minority, underrepresented, and there's others. And I don't want to get too far down that road, but there's other entities out there that are funding 6 and 7 figures because they want their superheroes to stay a certain color. And they've never, these particular groups have never published, never created, never written, never drawn anything in their life, but they know that the medium is that big in North America and globally. But they're being backed by, just go keep those heroes status quo, as and they're buying buildings, they're buying property so that they can go make more heroes of that same nature. And I think it's a ripoff to the independents, all independents that have great stories to tell, who have been in it for life, who have, or who are just starting out, And I see a lot of young artists right now that are, they want in, they're good enough to be in. And at the same time, they have different, they have their own stories to tell. And I think that's a good thing.
Yes.
Tell it through, other people's characters and everything. But, I look at our guy, Chris Williams, that guy has a lot of good story to tell, and he's doing a lot of good stuff. He'll do it a lot with pinups and everything he does. But I've seen some of his other personal stuff, and it's just amazing. I mean, it's just, I'm so inspired by young artists that are just doing it because they love it. All of us on here just love it, and it'd be great to just we got to just keep going around finding people that want to support that independent spirit and the independent artists.
Finding your tribe.
It's still a hard road. No, it's still a hard road.
Yeah. So 26 years later, and with you being the first, with the original Tribal Force comic being the first, all Native American team. I mean, and maybe I'm just not aware, but had there been others since then, or is it still, because it seems like it's still, it's still just as relevant, or just it's still as needed as ever now than it was 26 years ago.
Yeah. There's a lot of superheroes that the Native American community has created,
right,
that have actually, done some good. I mean, that have actually got some notoriety and have some semi-success. And I think what John did with Tribal Force was he basically created something and said, this is real. This is actually from real culture, from real stories, from my own background, and from the background of a culture that has been here for a millennia. And these are real beliefs. And he put them in a comic book superhero format that not only made sense, but is relatable. And people can look into it and go, oh, so there's a fourth dimension and a fifth dimension, and there's people that gods and whatnot that are looking out for us, and there are star people and all these other things that are aligned with Native American folklore and legends and whatnot, but they're actually real, real tales the same tales that you're going to find if you actually go and talk to the elders of any tribe. They'll tell you about, the spider woman. They'll tell you about the thunder gods. They'll tell you about the star people. All of these are, what John did was just made it okay that it was in the comic, in this comic book format. And then I think that opened up I think it sparked so many other Native Americans to create their own versions of it, because I actually supported a couple. I think there was a Deer Woman comic that I thought was just awesome, but it was really all about the Deer Woman legend from I want to say it was Ojibwe, but I'm not sure. It's off the top of my head right now, but there's several. I think there was a Captain Native America. There's been a couple different ones, and there's actually an Indigenous con that takes place in I think it's Albuquerque or Santa Fe every year. I would love to go to that.
Yeah,
because that didn't exist before '96. So you have this is like the point of the spear that kind of opened a lot of things up for other people when all of a sudden, and this is what happened. You had one book out there, and whether they knew it or not, it just really was the energy behind it. Whether they knew about Tribal Force or not. But once that opened up, all of a sudden, independent Native American and minority, came through it. But I won't say that, from a minority perspective, I would actually go and look at, I think it was DC's, was it Bloodworks or Bloodstone? Was it?
Oh, that sounds familiar.
It was Static and those characters.
Okay.
Denny and those guys.
Yeah.
Dennis Johnson and those guys.
Milestone.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I thought those were great books. I thought those were just amazing. Like the Blood Syndicate and all them.
Yeah.
I thought I was in love with all
Icon.
that.
Yeah.
I have Icon and all them. Yeah. And that was, I think, to me, that was my spearhead. It was like, oh, wait a minute, these are different characters. They have real lives. There's real stories here. There's real beliefs. There's legend behind them, and it matters, and what they're talking about matters. What they're dealing with is real world issues. They're not, they're not a billionaire guy in a mansion with his own cave. And they're not somehow a photographer or someone from another planet. These are people from here, and gods and everything. So I was inspired by that, and then Tribal Force comes along and I think opens it up to a whole different community. So
yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I thought I heard that they're, if they haven't already, I thought I heard that they're rebooting Milestone or bringing it back, or
they definitely have the following. They would have my support at 1,000%. And I think it's difficult. There's a lot of, especially celebrities. We get closer to them now more than ever online. You hear them a lot, especially on Twitter and stuff like that. Oh, there needs to be more brown, or there needs to be, we're looking at people, especially when the Oscars come around. Like I heard the stat. You go back to 2015 when they started saying where are all the minorities, where are all the skin colors, because in 2015 it became this big upheaval. So you backtrack that 7 years and you track it. So there's about, up to that point, it's like 8% total anybody of a minority persuasion, even related to the Oscars, and none of them in the main categories, right? Last year when we had the big slap, there was like 17%.
Yeah.
From 2015 to 22, 7 years, it went up 9%. That's a long time. That's almost a decade it takes to move that needle.
Yep.
And then you have, people, minority celebrities, minority people of color in there saying, well, we need more, we need more, we need more. But then, and I'm not going to, then you have them signing deals with Marvel or signing deals with, these other companies that would, oh, by the way, we're doing this with so-and-so. And it becomes a one-shot deal. It's like, well, we would love to publish a second issue, but it didn't quite make our minimum, 3,000 prints. And, but we put it out there, and it's like, yeah, that's not what we're talking about. It's not about putting it out there. It's about creating a world that fans and everything can believe in, that you're creating a story that is going to live on. And that's
Yes.
why it's important for artists not to give up, because the fan's not going to give up in believing in you. And it sucks because, we live in a world where money pays everything. And sometimes you're not, most of the time you're not, as an artist, you're not working for money. You're doing it because it's who you are.
Yes.
So, so I wish, that I know there's a lot of, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but there's people I've talked to online and whatnot. It's like, oh yeah, we'll definitely, we need more people of color, more brown people, more, to be creators and whatnot. But when it comes time to supporting, or it comes times to the bottom line, they understand their bottom line, and it's okay that they do, but you can't go out there and yell at everybody and then, I'll be right back yelling. I got to go sign my big deal with the
exactly.
Yeah, it's
No,
funny
that's such a
because
good point.
it's fun. It's obviously the money is what talks. Because I mean, I was what was I listening? I was listening to something. It was a review of The Wiz from back in the 70s, and it was it was
great money,
all black cast, everything, and it bombed. So for up until maybe like Black Panther, the studios would just say, "Oh, they, all black cast and stuff." It doesn't, it's just not, it's not good. It's just not going to be successful until it is, and then it's like, oh, okay, we need more of this now. So it's just like, yeah.
My favorite, and it's funny because I'll, as soon as that song comes on, "You Can't Win," I'm dancing around like one of those crows from The Wiz. One of the best scenes ever.
Yeah. Oh, I loved it. I mean, I saw the play when I was young, and
so good stuff.
And I didn't even know it bombed at the time, because to me it was a big thing. So
it was great. That was a good movie. It's good.
But anyway, so we're coming up on the hour and a half. Is there anything that you wanted to touch on that we didn't touch on before we start closing things out, Gene?
No, just that, first of all, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
I always appreciate it. You guys are great. I get to see Scott on off-world stuff that is very cool. And I love working on Scott's stuff because it's like so different and out there, and, has a very cool, wide open feel to it. And, I think your storytelling is really cool.
Thank you. I'm hoping the goal is that we'll have more stuff. So whether you're available or not, or I know you've got some other colors probably that you could recommend too, but we'll see. Hopefully the goal is that we're going to be producing more of those books this year. So
that'd be great. I agree. Count me in so far.
Yeah. You knocked it out of the park with the one we already produced. So as far as the coloring and everything, so
I appreciate it. And I just, I read Josh's book, probably about 9 months ago when you sent it to me. And if anyone hasn't gotten that book, it's a great vulnerable share. It's like this ultimate power share of your life. It's like artists, I think, are always we're trying to express something that's unspeakable, or you can't put the words on and whatnot. I think Josh has done something really unique in that those words were exactly, and those images were exactly what the feeling was, what the experience was, what the, and it's rare, because sometimes, I'll be, people's like, where do you get your inspirations and ideas from? It's like, well, when I draw elephants, I'm thinking of my family, when I drawing, flowers, I'm just appreciating nature in a different way. Or when I'm drawing women, it's more about the dynamic and honoring their dynamic energy than it is drawing a female figure.
That's a really good way of describing.
But what you did, Josh, was you just said, this is it, black and white. And it's not an easy, that's not hard. That's not easy to do. That's not a lot, especially for artists. It's like, you look at, I don't know, a lot of people have thrown me a lot of Vincent van Gogh stuff, but you look at a lot of the sunflowers and everything, and people just writing novels and books, and there's been documentaries just on, the the olive tree orchards that he painted and everything. And those are all coming out of emotions. And what you did was just put it in black and white and said, no, this is what I really went through. This is what I'm really feeling. There was no like, I'm going to draw a hummingbird and see what everyone thinks.
Yeah.
and hopefully you'll get that I have a lot of pain inside. I think that was just one of the most emotional power shares. So I acknowledge you for that. That was just beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And Corey, don't think I haven't seen your stuff. It's just killer. Like, there's some tattoo artists actually, when I was pull up some of your stuff, and they were like, oh, who's that guy? So I've turned them on to you. So you may be.
Yeah, I never thought about that, but Corey, especially the stuff that he's doing right now, because it's got a lot of skeletons and stuff. So I could definitely see that as tattoo art. But
Corey, you might end up with people just getting them tattooed.
Yeah.
I've had that happen twice, where somebody got art I did tattooed on them without. And then like 10 years later, we're like, by the way, I got a tattoo of your art. I'm like, what the hell? That's amazing.
Yeah, that'd be cool, man.
Your stuff would look good as a tat. Just out there in the audience, if you guys are looking for tattoos, I mean, you should look at Corey's art and have a tattoo artist put it on you.
Or if you're a little bit more indecisive, you could wear it as a t-shirt.
Oh, or drink from a mug.
We'll definitely get to that. Well, I guess we could probably start that off now. If we've all said what we need to say, we'll let Corey start it off and let everyone know where they can get those t-shirts.
If you're interested in in tearing down oppressive power structures and breaking the oligarchies of tech, then you should check out my work at CoreyKerr.com. And so I love people and I hate oppressive power structures. And so my most recent work that I'm doing is Esoteric Crumble Flux series. And I'm trying something out with it. And so it's all black and white based on it's got a lot of like old religious iconography. There's Norse, Greek, and Egyptian kind of mythology mixed in, and then taking a lot of that type of stuff and mixing it with kind of more modern elements. And so, you'll see Odin's ravens cutting Ethernet cords, and it's wild. So go check that out if you haven't. And if you're interested in all the kind of backstories and things along with that, then you can sign up for my newsletter at CoreyKerr.com, because I will do little video essays kind of describing each piece. I'm kind of on a little bit of a mission right now to try to get people to sit with their own thoughts and experience the world as it is, rather than being kind of sexless low poly Ken dolls in a metaverse situation. So instead of trying to experience the world through augmented reality, you could experience actual reality and get my stuff on a t-shirt and wear it in the real world.
Awesome. Yeah. And your latest video is great. And I can't wait for more in that series. So.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Oh, actually I should probably talk about that. So I'm starting to do a series. I did a class recently called Intentional Creativity. Just with, I think everybody, but definitely the generation that's in college now is struggling to like disconnect from devices. And I am working with some colleagues of mine to possibly do like a published academic paper, or maybe this turns into a PhD dissertation or something. But we've run 32 students through this program that basically teaches people mindfulness technology or mindfulness techniques and breathing techniques. And I'm having people that are reporting that they're sleeping better, they're lowering their anxiety, they're increasing their creativity, they're able to empathize with other people. And so I already have the first video in that series out of a lot of those techniques of how to create space away from the programming of the zeitgeist currently, so that you can move into kind of some more spiritual connection with the world, with God, with the universe, however you want to view that kind of more real connection rather than digital connection, the more analog connection to the human state. And then in the next video, I'm going to be covering input. So getting away from like the current zeitgeist so that you can get back into some more interesting and deeper kind of texts. And so what Gene's talking about would be perfect is I've got students going back and just doing inspiration family trees, where if you like Scorsese, go figure out who Scorsese liked and go figure out who that guy liked and go figure out who that girl liked. And then, so there's students that have never looked, past the last 20 years, and they're reading Marcus Aurelius on their own, not because I assigned it, but because they found, Newton or ancient mythologies or whatever, because those are the types of things that are kind of rich and integrated into our culture in a way that isn't derivative. And so if you want to get really creative, the next video that I'm going to get into is going to be talking about some techniques that you can use and incorporate into your life to kind of reignite your childlike wonder and curiosity back when you were malleable and learned everything at like rapid rates. Probably the most creative state that we can be in is like being 5, and so that's going to be that. And then we'll go into a couple others. And so if you're interested in reigniting creativity and getting, lowering a lot of the negative emotional states that we find ourselves in when you have a screen 6 inches from your nose every waking moment of your life, that's a good series to be part of. It's not getting as much traction as I would like, but I feel like it's a lot deeper and more important than a lot of the things that I've done in the past. So it's good.
I'm going to tell you the same thing I told Scott when he started the making. Am I frozen, by the way?
Yeah, but we can hear you.
Yeah,
okay. So I'm going to tell you the same thing I told Scott when he started the kind of making comics 101 series. I think what you're doing will have like more longevity, and I think you should stick with it because these are really important topics, and I think that'll be a good resource for people that hopefully will just be like more of a slow build, but hopefully, as a collection will just become, huge.
Yeah, and in retrospect, it did. I mean, the Making Comics series continues to get views and so.
Yeah, I would be interested in talking to you. Yeah, I'd be interested in talking with you more, Corey, just because I taught for 10 years. I taught a course called Being an Artist.
Oh, yeah.
And it really was about waking up every single day, and creating from nothing.
Yeah.
And, what is that about? And, just to give you an idea, the first thing we learned was how to look at somebody in the eye. Like how do you look at somebody in the eyes?
Yep.
And communicate, and then the first 15 minutes of class every day was crayons because we needed to be 5-year-olds and spark muscle memory, that. And really get back to who we were when we walked in that preschool the first day, So, I would love to talk to you more about that.
Yeah, let's find a time. We can either do that live or privately, but I'd be totally down to pick your brain for sure.
Woo!
Yeah,
78%.
definitely. Definitely awesome. Yeah, definitely. I was even thinking, you guys should connect because especially like the kind of work that Lynn does and all that kind of stuff. So it's very, we both me and my girlfriend Jen, we listened to your video on the way up on our drive to California, and it's just it resonated quite a bit. Yeah, no, not at all. Very fascinating. So, anyway, Josh, what about you?
So Gene did my pitch for me, but so just back up a little bit and listen to Gene's testimonial if you want kind of like a very honest, raw, kind of in the tradition of like really classic indie comics, like underground stuff like Raw and American Splendor and stuff like that. 2 Stories is kind of my little opus. So check that out. It's a graphic novel that talks very openly about my journey learning how to deal with depression and mental illness. It deals with really heavy topics, but it also juxtaposes that with some lighter hearted stories about like childhood and kind of comparing navigating childhood versus navigating kind of the complications of adulthood and mental illness. And then also there's Jacob's Apartment. And that is my other graphic novel that's about doomed romance. And I kind of pitched it at the beginning, but you can get that at bookstores anywhere. And then there's my YouTube channel where I deeply teach you to connect with your devices. Devices like Risk, the strategy game, and I've been playing that a lot, as well as working on pages for my upcoming graphic novel that is written by Lavender Vroman about the Brownings, called Not Death But Love, the Strange Supernatural Story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. So if you want to see, you want to work on comics together or just kind of watch as I dominate the world on Risk, It's like a mix of those two things. The Risk thing is kind of a new addition, but it should be fun. And my channel is definitely going in a completely new direction. So I thought I should mention that. And that'll do it. So Gene, let's hear, let's hear. I think we got to say Tribal. Okay, pitch Tribal Force and Kickstarter and stuff one last time, so everybody listening right now can go support it.
Tribal Force, Native American heroes, first ever comic book from the early 90s is back in a big way. We have a new look, all new production team, and it's all produced by Native Americans, which is pretty cool.
Yes.
And we are on Kickstarter right now. We are exactly halfway through. Tonight is exactly halfway through our campaign. We are 78% funded, and we need your help. We would love your support. Get on this train. It's going to be great. We're in for a big ride here, and we appreciate everyone who has been with us. Some people, have come up to us with the original book. I don't have one. I that's like the one
must have gave
really
us one to me.
don't have. Yeah, it might be up in the rafters. I mean, because I still have like 3 long boxes up there full of stuff. I don't know what's in them. But Tribal Forces on Kickstarter. We got 15 days, and would love you to check it out. Machinecomics.com, comics with an X. You'll find all our creations there. Scott Sirag has been working with me on Downtown, and I was just creating some new character colors today for his new book called Tales of Elysium, which is all of this takes, my book, Tribal Force, and Scott's book takes place in the same universe. We didn't know that when we kind of created them all, but they kind of all do, except Scott's takes place probably about 300 years in the future in a post-apocalyptic world where elves and magic and all that stuff come back.
Oh,
so
sweet.
So we're excited. That's
Gene.
Machinecomics.com and Tribal Force. We got 15 days to make it happen. And, thank you everyone who's supported us so far. And we're looking forward to funding.
Gene, we have a question from Thomas Adams. I think I know the answer, but I'd rather go direct to you. He said, do you need the old book or can you start with this Kickstarter?
No, start with the Kickstarter. It actually starts before the story that is told in the one from 96. So this tells the origins of why Thunder Eagle is doing what he's doing. Thunder Eagle is kind of like the main catalyst in the whole book, but it gives them the reason why he's in this dimension, in this reality now. Thunder Eagle is like a god from Native American folklore. And he's not really a superhero. He's more of a god that would come, and if you beat him, then he was in service to your tribe or in service to your community for X amount of time. And the gods actually tell him that he's needed in this other dimension. And then it kind of takes off from there, because who he comes to meet and save and teach how to be who they are is, somebody who's living in our world, dealing with human trafficking, dealing with child abuse, dealing with all these other things. So it's a fascinating origin story. And then the story that would probably be from that back book is actually expanded upon. You'll see remnants of it in it, but it's a way deeper story
I love it.
than the original. So start with this new one. Is a whole nother starting from the very origins. There's no 0 issue in this. This is, our number 1 is really looks like a 0 issue. So
nice. And it's a beginning story. So Thomas, if you want, if you're interested in this would be the time to jump in, because you're starting the story with them.
Yeah. We've already got a couple people chiming in saying that they just backed the Kickstarter. So,
thank you guys.
For those of you watching now or after the fact, the link is in the description. So we're making it super easy. Go to the description of the video, click on the link, and go check out the Kickstarter. I think, just go check it out. I'm sure you're going to want to back it once you check it out. So,
Artist Ralph, I see you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and so I guess I'll close it out. So as far as me, you can find my stuff on this channel, YouTube channel, like the aforementioned Making Comics 101. It is my course on how to make comics. It is totally free. It's very comprehensive. It's the most comprehensive free course you're going to find on making comics anywhere. Also, you can find my stuff on my website at circworks.com. I've got tons of tools that help you make comics, as well as my own comic, Young and the Dead. And that is a kids versus zombie adventure story. It's kind of like Goonies meets Night of the Living Dead. And then besides that, you got your hand up. Yes, Gene.
Wait.
Yeah.
Tribal Force down. All of Machine Comics are actually using your word balloons and your page templates.
Oh, really? Awesome. That's cool. That's awesome. I didn't know
I just
that.
realized that. I'm like, wait a minute, that's all your stuff.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That's cool. And what else was I going to say?
This channel gets confusing.
Yes.
Because I can't keep track of it, Scott. It's on my channel sometimes. It's on Corey's channel sometimes.
Yeah,
I don't
and it's
even know
different
what
days
channel.
sometimes. Sometimes we have a guest like Gene who for some reason can't do a Thursday night, so we have to do it on Wednesday night. But anyway, all that is to say that the show, it rotates back and forth between our three channels. It could be on a Wednesday, it could be on a Thursday, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
And
it's like a game of Pong, you guys. It's just,
we have different guests, we have different topics. But if you want to know all that stuff, who the guest is, who the topic is, what day it's going to be on, whose channel it's going to be on, the best way to do that is to join our mailing list. There's also a link to that in the description. Oh, the other thing, that's what I was thinking of. In addition to Gene's Kickstarter, all his other information, all his other websites, and he's got several. If you want to check out more on Gene, those are in the description as well. Also in the description is a link to our newsletter. We don't spam you or anything. All we do is about 30 minutes before we go live, we send out a newsletter letting you know where we're going to be, what channel, and all that kind of stuff. So definitely check that out. Also, I wanted to thank the chat. Thanks for all the great questions and comments and things we had in there. We always appreciate you guys. And we will see you next week. See you guys later.